Hey guys, so sorry I was not updating for a long time, but I was really busy. I started a new job. It's a Principal Tech Animator role now, and yeah, unfortunately the game had to take a back seat, but I'm back and I have a new idea. I can't really spend too much time making the videos, but I can do things like um, show the updates and a technical breakdown. So this is the first one of the series. Let me know what you think. The first part is where I showcase what I've done in the game, and the second part I talk briefly how I've done it. And if you need any more information or have questions, just post in the comments. And then for the for the patrons, I don't know how to speak English. For the patrons, yeah, I'll probably add some more detailed breakdowns depending on what they want to see. Anyway, thanks guys, and yeah, soon the new demo will come out and you can test all this yourself. Alright guys, so welcome to this update. Let's start the game. So the first thing you will notice is that I have updated the music to Fab assets. I didn't want to get into any copyright issues. Here we have the hero selection. Let's select the zombie and let's go into game. Alright, so we're gonna grab the liches first. They're gonna warn us about this barbarian guy roaming around. Let's just add them to our army since they want to join. And so this focuses on Embalm Guards, which are basically mummies. So let's go where they are. In this case they're waiting here, protecting this stone quarry, which by the way needs some update in the graphics, but that's okay. Alright, let's battle them. So they're like high level, which means they're gonna have their abilities unlocked. So you can already see some of them in action. I like this battle music, by the way. I think it works better than before. Let's get some bats to trigger some abilities on them from those mummies. Let's just fly close. So this is one of the abilities. It just summons a bunch of beetles or scarabs. Alright, so they're not too hard to beat in this case. But if you want to see more of it, we'll just make like a custom battle. So in order to own a building, you have to leave some units in there. And now it's yours, delivering you rocks on a daily basis. Anyway, let's go to the main menu and let's configure a battle where we can have some of those creatures fighting each other. Give them high levels so they can have all their abilities unlocked. Level 10 should basically unlock all their abilities. Normally, when you play the game, you gain experience and the creatures level up and the new abilities come. But in this case, we just want to have a random little battle where we can actually test stuff out. This menu is a little bit clunky. Should probably make this selection easier. Alright, so there we go. So AI will use some abilities, and I'm also going to showcase some abilities. Unfortunately, enemies are too far now, any of those abilities to be available. And now, so this is one of them. It's called Embalmer's Curse. And this Embalmer's Curse, basically it's a powerful attack that weakens your enemy. So in this case it killed me. Let's maybe create some more units so we can play with another ability that's quite interesting. So in this case I gave them just 3 abilities each. And that's the most common number for most units. Other abilities can come from weapons or some spell scrolls, but in this case we only have 3 basic abilities that this particular unit can unlock. Let's get a skeleton with 2 swords. Alright. Let's see where we're at now. Okay, so I'm gonna defend and let's see. Yeah, so that ability is called a Hypnotic Gaze, and basically what it does, it just makes him unable to move or retaliate. The only thing he can do for a few turns is just defend. So it's a pretty cool one. Let's finish this guy up with Scarabs Attack. That's a powerful one, but it's targeted on one monster at a time. I think it's the most powerful I gave them. We can do the Hypnotic Trance. So you can see we can't really move right now. We can just defend. Can't counterattack either. There's Embalmer's Curse on this guy. There he goes. Alright, and that's it for the battle. I hope you enjoyed this. I might change the look a little bit, but for now, this is a good testing. Alright guys, so I'd like to do some little behind the scenes here. So let's have a look at those abilities. So the first one that I want to talk about is this, it's called Embalmer's Curse. So that one is the one where he attacks and has some kind of a special VFX in his hand. So how I did this one is, first of all I created the Niagara system. And it's basically like this kind of like a little smoke. Which just, you know, it just goes on for like few seconds. Now, how do I attach it to the character? So the ability actually spawns a blueprint, and this blueprint has it inside, and it also has a light, like a green light. It has this little counter that goes on every tick, and then once the counter hits certain number or gets decreased to 0, then this just dies organically. But what I'm doing here is I'm getting the socket from, so like, you know, in the game there's only one unit that's active at the time because it's a turn-based game. So I save that unit, I store it on begin play, I grab the main blueprint that manages the game and get the unit from it and save it into a variable, and then on a tick I get the socket position and snap this blueprint to it. And so that logic is kind of embedded in this VFX blueprint. It maybe is not the most optimized, but because it's a turn-based game, it doesn't really matter. So that was the first one. And with the emitter, you actually can define how long it's going to last. So that's pretty nice. So if you go to spawn rate, you can control how it's spawning. and emitter state. You can also say loop duration, and you can just do once. So that's really nice. So that was easy. Now the other one that's interesting is this the Scarabs Attack. Let's go into this one, the Scarab Swarm. So this one is also a blueprint, but it just spawns an explosion. And so it has this animation of those scarabs, and I actually have like 4 skeletal meshes that are rotated 90 degrees, and they all come in. So if I do simulation, you can see that they're kind of overlapping. And there is also obviously a smoke effect there. So similar situation. Now how did I make those beetles? So I actually animated them in Maya. And I was animating one, and then I just kept on duplicating. And I actually also rigged them. So they're like super simple rigs. I animated on joints. Just a little bit of a walking animation. Super funny. And so they basically come out from underneath the ground, crawl into the center. And that's it. And so now if I duplicate it, it's just as simple as I basically save this as a scene, and I can import the same scene into that existing scene. That's how I did this, like this. So now I have 2 roots, and now I can basically do this. Right, and then I just have to clean the naming and the namespaces and parent it under 1 root, but that's basically how I did this. Now the last ability I did, that one was the most complicated one. The Hypnotic Gaze. That was a little bit harder because it needed a control rig approach. So this one is interesting. So it's also a blueprint Hypnotic Gaze. It has 2 points and 2 lights. It also has a skeletal mesh. So basically what I'm doing in the beginning of the spawn, in the begin play, I get the current unit and I get the target because I store it in my game. I get their positions, and then I store those positions in origin and target variables. And I also set the default scene root to 0, 0, 0 because that works best if the whole thing is at 0, 0. And so then look at this. Basically, if I change my origin to -10, or maybe -100 in this case will be better, and target I'll do 100. I mean, I would suppose it should work. -100, 100, no. Anyway, it's a simple SK. Let me show you in Maya, maybe that's going to be better. It's called paralysis here. So it's a simple SK, but it's skinned like this. I have 1 joint here and 1 joint there. So it makes this cone, and this cone, I can show you how it works. So so first of all, it puts 1 light in the attacker and 1 light in the defender, and then it's trying to stretch that cone in between the attacker and defender. And it's doing that using a control rig. So I love when Unreal does this. This is really weird. So to that skeletal mesh, I assigned a animation blueprint. And that animation blueprint basically reads. So first of all, it casts to that blueprint of an explosion and then reads that target and origin. And then it also reads the progress of how far are we into the ability. And what it then does, it stretches that skeletal mesh here using a control rig between the 2 positions. So in this case, it should work now. So if I do 100 and -100, and if I compile, you will see how it stretches that cone. Now the progress is the thing that I need to preview here. So it starts with 0, but then um, what it also does, you see it stretches that cone along. So you can see here, if it's like 0.5, actually maybe let's do minus 1000 and 1000, so you can see better. And then now let's do progress 1. So you can see what's happening here, how this progress is stretching from the position to position. And then 0.5 will make it go halfway, but then 1 will make it go all the way. And so this is the kind of like effect that I wanted. Now this is kind of like a material that fades, but this is basically a skeletal mesh stretching from one position to another. And to get that happening, I had to make a control rig, which is a special control rig class, Gaze cone. And that basically is doing some simple math here. It has some variables, origin target, which I'm passing there, and that progress, and also the size, which is something I define the thickness of. So it sets the scale of bones first based on the size. So like I want the thickness of my cone, that's more like a constant. Then it sets translation based on the origin of the first joint, and then second joint it sets translation of it based on the target. And then it aims the first joint at the second using aim constraint. Actually, it aims second joint at the first one using aim constraint. So that's like the end joint looks at the start joint. And then I take the rotation of that joint and set the rotation of the first joint the same as the aimer. But here, I'm not really propagating to children, which means I just rotate that joint without affecting the cone itself. And then I just basically scale the whole thing based on that progress, so it stretches along. So that's basically the logic here, and it works quite well. So you can use control rigs and post-process blueprints or animation blueprints to get your thing animating from a blueprint. I actually like that technique a lot. This is how I did the lighting on the lich. Same thing. I'll do a video about the lightning as well. But for this video, what I wanted to show you, maybe let's reload those assets first, because they are gonna get saved and I don't really want to change them because they were working so well. Alright. Let's have a look at this shader, because that was interesting, how to get that shader going. And this is something I figured out thanks to ChatGPT. So first you assign a color, obviously it's a translucent shader, and you basically get coordinate index, and then you just get masking, and I only use G channel here, and it's set to subtract from 1. I tried that, but then it was reversed, so my cone would be like the other way, which I didn't particularly like, so I skipped that part, and I just go power 4, and that's what makes it fade nicely. Power 4, you could do more power if you want to. Power 2 was a little bit too weak. And then lastly, you clamp it between 0 and 1 and plug it into opacity, and that makes your shader basically fade along the cone. But also what you need to do here is you need to make sure that your cone in Maya, that it has UVs. And those UVs, depending on how they are structured, you might need to use a channel G or R or B for your masking. But in my case it's G and it works perfectly fine. So have a look at that, and hopefully that was helpful, guys. I know it's a bit rushed, Well, if you want more details, then join my Patreon. Also, feel free to ask some questions in the comments if you want me to go into anything deeper. Alright, see you in the next one.